Welcome to the Oh So Spurs podcast. If you're looking for somewhere where you're going to be free of made-up transfer rumours, hysteria and screaming, and a group of people who'll try focus on the truth behind the noise, well, you've found the right pod. Today we're going to be covering Daniel Levy's interview, the departure of the legendary Son Heung Min, our pre-season lessons so far, what's expected to happen next on the transfer front, especially due to those recent injuries. And then we'll look a bit forward into what's coming over the next 2 weeks. Just another chance to win a trophy. And to discuss it all with me tonight, we've got Sai over in Basel. How are you, Sai?
Very well, mate. Very well. Thank you very much.
Good to have you back, mate. And we've got
Cheers.
Stu over in Dubai. How are you, Stu?
Well, thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Doing good. Yeah. And we have Deej over in sunny California. How are you, Deej?
I'm doing fantastic.
Brilliant. Well, guys, let's start with the most recent bit of news. Daniel Levy walked around this Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with Gary Neville. I'll start with, have you seen it yet?
Yep.
I've watched it from start to finish, but what did you make of it? Did we hear anything groundbreaking?
Nope.
End of that conversation?
Yeah, there we go. I've got into Levy mode in my answers. Right. No, next. I think he's a good politician. He talks and doesn't say a lot sometimes. We got his views on the parachute payments, the regulator, the constitution of the Premier League. And I thought what was quite interesting was, some of the stuff he said about the ground and the financing and how lucky we were to get all the financing done when we did. And the fact that, United are looking at their ground redevelopment, and he said whatever they put down on paper, it's going to be much, much more than that. And some of those little insights on the administration of a football club. But I don't think we heard anything massively insightful about the club itself. I liked that he played it. It was interesting that he played down his involvement in the football side. I'm not quite sure that anybody completely buys that. But he spoke well. He came across well. He talked about the different the multiple revenue streams, and you start looking now, and other clubs, funny enough, Liverpool are doing it, Man City are doing it. A lot of other clubs are starting to see that that's a way to be sustainable. Did we hear anything groundbreaking? No. Was it a decent interview? Yeah. Does he talk? He's talking better, I think, in front of the cameras now, and I think he challenged Gary Neville on a couple of bits. On Gary Neville's football utopia.
Yeah, I think Gary, wonderful intentions to, resolve certain issues in the football pyramid. But I think what Levy was trying to do is explain it's not quite as simple as great idea, let's do it. You've got 14 different clubs in the Premier League who all need to agree to it as a minimum in the voting system. And all those owners will have different intentions. They'll be there planning to be at their clubs for different amounts of time. Some are there to make money. Some of them are using the club for other purposes. So, and it's been mentioned before that some owners view it as, why should we be subsidising our competition? Which is an interesting one. So an owner has a very different perspective to a fan. We see all the benefit of helping the football pyramid and having this fantastic competitive league all the way down the divisions, and you're getting all these great players that help the national side, but hey, owners have different intentions. Before I go down that road, Stu, Daniel spoke about the fan protests. He did say he was hurt by them. What did you make of those comments? Do you feel he does have that side to him where those protests, he does feel them, or do you not buy that? Do you think he's a thick-skinned businessman who just, gets on with it?
No, I think he is hurt for him. I actually did some business a couple of years ago with a lad who's best friends with Levy's son, and he was telling me that it does impact him. He wants the best for the club. He thinks, obviously we all have our own opinion, and each to their own, but he thinks he's doing what is right for the club and trying to win for the club. So I think it does hurt him. I think when the camera pans on his face at the stadium as well, when you can hear the chants, you can see there's a pain expression on his face. And I think that's genuine.
He did talk a lot about the stadium and its multiple revenue streams, which help the club. And now you're seeing the likes of Man City try and emulate what we're doing. Newcastle talking about those kind of plans. Everton, I think Villa as well. More clubs are all saying, wow, that multi-revenue streams coming out of that stadium, getting it working 365 days a year instead of 19 times a year. What a clever idea. Let's maximize the opportunity in there. And he did set the standard, and Spurs have always been a club that does do these things first and innovate first. Even prior to ENIC, we were the first club to go public on the stock exchange, right? So it's interesting that we've always found a way of keeping up through these different ways. There was a massive focus from Neville on the constitution of the Premier League, regulation and parachute payments as well. I'm sticking with Si and Stu until we get to that. But Si, what did you make of that? Do you think he had some merit? I know we said it's a bit oversimplified, but was there some merit in his suggestions there?
I think he generally believes that the cliff edge is too large, too steep, and that if we could shallow the curve when it comes to the parachute payments and make that differential not so great, that it would be beneficial to the overall good of football. And I think you alluded to the fact a couple of minutes ago that he said that as a club, we would be prepared to sacrifice some of our profit in order to help facilitate that and do some stuff for the good of the game. However, not everybody is in it for the same reasons, as you said. So I think he believes that there's things that need addressing within the game. Is it as easy as Gary Neville made it out? Of course it's not. But there's probably somewhere in the middle where you could find some level of common ground where you could make it not, because this gap is just going to grow and grow, right? As long as that cliff edge is still there. And I get Gary Neville's point, and I sort of agree with him from a certain perspective. And I think that we probably do need to do something there to lessen the curve and shallow the curve a little bit. But like you said, trying to get 14 clubs to agree to that as a majority is not going to be easy. You know, the Premier League and the Football League are two different entities. They're run as two different entities. They're not under the same governance. So, you know, it's a difficult thing to force through.
You mentioned the biggest threat he felt to the Premier League was self-sponsorships and those rising owners who have multiple interests in the reasons they own a club being able to sponsor themselves for many reasons. What did you make of that kind of area of topic and focus?
Yeah, I thought, he was obviously he's well up to speed with everything, and he didn't object to state ownership of clubs, but he did say, and I think everyone agrees with him, that it needs to be regulated. You can't have people. If we're trying to make this a fair playing field, which will keep fans interested, which will keep the TV money coming in, you have to give at least the impression that it's a competitive field and anybody can try and compete to win the titles. And if you've got two or three people with a very clear unfair advantage, it's going to damage the product. And I think that's what he was kind of appealing to when he said it needs to be regulated.
Well, there you go. I agree completely, Stu, and we'll move on from the Levy interview because it was interesting, but I think you're going to see more questions that go outside the box coming from Simon Jordan's interview, which is supposed to drop this week as well. But I think you got to look at it as that was more an explanation of why we've made decisions rather than acknowledgement of whether those were right or wrong and what we're going to do in the future.
There was one question. Si clearly doesn't believe it, but I've said from the beginning, I've never believed that Daniel was involved with player decision making of who we bought, etc. But I do wish that Neville hadn't just let him talk about how much we've spent, 700 million net since we moved to the new stadium. But I wish he had asked him about the wage percentage to revenue. I think that was the one that everybody wanted addressed, and that was the one that he didn't ask.
That's true. It felt like it was asked but cut. That's the impression I got, and I could be completely wrong. But that's complete, conjecture. We don't want to go down that route. That's not what we're about on here. But guys, I think we need to move on to our club captain, a European champion, Golden Boot winner, Puskas Award winner. We could go on all day listing why the greatest smile in the Premier League winner, the most deadly partnership in the Premier League of all time alongside Harry Kane, the most clinical finisher since 2015 in the Premier League, possibly of all time. I need to check that.
Not just the Premier League, in European football.
Yeah.
In European football. There you go. So he needs no further introduction. It's Deej going to tell us about Son. Thoughts on the respect Son was shown on the weekend, Deej, leading on from those, and just his kind of career, his summary. Like, to you, you mentioned it before, to you and me, he's our Perryman, our Greaves, our Klinsmann, our Hoddle, right? He's someone we've seen through our whole prime journey supporting Spurs. We didn't see those other names on the pitch. But yeah, go on, over to you, Deej.
Yeah, no, I think the last the like tribute that was paid to him, I think was really cool. I think for him probably to be able to do the send off in front of the Korean fans, I think that was really cool. I mean, obviously you could tell how much the players had like a respect for him, and it was a fitting final chapter, I think, to the story that was Son Heung-min's Tottenham career. They had, I mean, there were like a lot of highs. Obviously, we had the most clinical duo in Premier League history. There were a lot of lows. Obviously, not his fault, but the manager carousel after Poch left was a bit brutal at times. There were times where he was struggling for form. There were times where the whole team was struggling for form. But he ended it with breaking the trophy drought as the captain, and I don't think that's. I think that's kind of the best possible way for him to go out. And yeah, I think this was as good a time as any to leave. I'm happy he's coming to the U.S. LAFC is coming up near me in September, so I went and bought tickets before this got more expensive. So hopefully I get to see him then.
Right.
But yeah, it was. I think this whole thing with the winning the trophy and to the send off in front of the Korean fans was probably the perfect way for him to go out.
And Sai, you've put together a nice list of summarising
Sonny by numbers.
Sonny by numbers. Love it.
So, just, in the 10 years that he was with us, 454 appearances. That puts him sixth. He overtook Ted Ditchburn on 452 at the end of last season. 173 goals across all competitions. That's fifth in the table of all-time goal scorers for Tottenham. Total assists 101, 127 goals in 333 appearances in the Premier League, and 71 Premier League assists, the most in Spurs history, and then rounds it off, as we've just said, club captain, lifting the Europa League Cup. And, is there a better way to be able to say, I'm done, I'm going, move on? And but really emotional though. I was surprised how emotional I was when I saw him leave the pitch, and he was sat in the dugout. He was clearly very emotional, and he's a special player.
He is. Well, there's a long list of. Go on, Stu. Go on, mate.
No, I was going to say, I thought something that was very special was the fact that both teams gave him the guard of the Tunnel of Honor.
Yeah.
At the weekend. I thought that just showed that he wasn't just a legend to us, but he was a legend to the Premier League. Like, I thought it was nice that Gordon also came out before the game about he was someone that he'd always looked up to and kind of modeled his game on. And it just shows you the impact that Son has. He's not an Asian superstar. He's not a Spurs superstar. He's just a superstar.
Yeah. The ironic thing, though, is the only player he's ever fallen out with, he's going to play with again in LA, which is Hugo Lloris.
That's true.
It's the only player he's ever been seen to fall out with. So, yeah.
Can I? You gave some great stats there, positive stats. So can I give some depressing stats?
Go on then.
So,
why would you do that on a tribute vid?
Just to show you the impact Son had. No, it's not negative towards Son.
I see.
So last season, we won 42% of the 24 league games that Son started. 7% without him. We failed to win 13 of 14 matches without him last season. With him, we scored 2.1 goals a game. Without him, we scored 1 goal a game. The impact that he had in his poor season, let's not forget, everyone was going on about how he had a poor season. In his poor season, where his finishing came to the average, XG that's for him is a poor season, being average, and the impact he has on us was huge. So you can just imagine without him going forward, it's going to be tough to replace.
Yeah, it can't be understated how valuable all those moments were across every season. He's been so consistent when some of those seasons he was forced to play up front for large parts when he doesn't want to play up front, but he did anyway. He's been forced to, go through different variations of tactics, knee-jerk between defensive football to attacking football to stuff in between. And he's never moaned. He's never put excuses on it. He's always had the output at the end of the day. But I think we should look at some of our favourite moments. Just quickly take one each before we move on from Sonny. Deej, your most prevalent Son Heung Min moment, memory, goal, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit yesterday on our Sunday night news recap live stream, which if you haven't tuned into, you should tune into next week, because I think we're making it a weekly thing. I think it has to be the final goal that got him the Golden Boot against Norwich. That was just I like that whole game was kind of like the culmination of a really weird season that ended very, very well for us, with Arsenal just imploding and us being able to take the final Champions League spot. That was awesome. I don't know if you guys remember, but all of the big Arsenal accounts like would
They've still got to
Photoshop
go
their
to
players
Norwich.
into Norwich kits as for like the pre-match stuff, and then like as soon as we came out, it was obvious that team did not come to play.
Is that
And
5-0?
we had
Is that 5-0
exactly one
that
goal.
game? 5-0.
Yeah, we had exactly
yeah.
one goal, and that was to make sure Sonny won the Golden Boot.
There you
And
go.
I think there was a podcast that Kulusevski was on afterwards, because there was a chance that he absolutely just ruined. It was like a wide open goal, and he did something, I don't even know exactly what, but it ended up going out for like a goal kick or something. And he was talking. He was like, "I knew that I could score, but I also knew that we needed to make sure that Son won the Golden Boot. So I tried to pass it to him, and then he fell, and then he ruined the chance. At that point,
He
we were like
scuffed it.
3-0. But then that final goal where he scores, and you can kind of tell that he knows he's won the Golden Boot, and he's just running across the pitch, and like just pure joy is just so much fun to watch. And I think that kind of encapsulates Sonny as a Tottenham player. Just the joy that he brought to the club, to the fans, was something that is not easily replicatable. And yeah, very good.
There you
moment.
go. Deej, it's when the whole team got behind Sonny to win in the Golden Boot, and he did. Stu, what's yours?
So mine, and I've picked this because one, it's against a side that think that they should take our place in the Big Six. But for me, it's also because it shows how he puts his body on the line for the team. If you remember, Kane was out injured. He was playing up front. We were playing Villa. He broke his arm. He'd already scored one. He knew he'd broken his arm, but he knew we didn't have anyone else on the bench. So he played on through, and then he scored a last-minute winner, running half the length of the pitch, and then a beautiful finish into the far corner. That was just Sonny putting his body on the line for Spurs and coming through with a winner.
Well, Si, over to you, mate.
I think for me, loads to choose from, obviously, but I thought his 50th goal for the club, which was the third against Chelsea at Wembley, November 2018. You know, Dele plays a bit of a speculative ball down the right channel. Sonny picks it up, puts the afterburners on, and goes past Jorginho like he's not there, and then sends David Luiz for hot dogs in the stand. He was like, David Luiz didn't know what had happened. Cuts inside, slots it away, and that for me, the way that he just turned those afterburners on and left Jorginho in his wake was just amazing. And that just goes to show the control that he's got with both feet as well. He's one of the most definitive two-footed players that I think you could pick out. If you were going to have a two-footed player in the dictionary, you'd have a picture of Sonny in there, whether he cuts in and hits left top corner or right top corner, or just that was just amazing. Just the way he left him for dead. And but and I think it made it more special because I was there with the boys as well. We were there at Wembley, and it was one of the only times where Wembley had a decent atmosphere at it, because that was an awful ground to go and watch football week in, week out. But that game was amazing. And and what about you, Jim?
I think I was going to go with the same as Deej, actually. That was it was just because it was the whole club was behind him, the fans were behind him, everyone was behind him to just help him get that moment over the line, because we all just liked him so much. But as it's taken, Leicester created a fake rivalry with us. It was quite nice slapping them with a Son Heung Min comeback with two, not just one of his signature screamers, but two. One on each side. So you got both of them in the same game. And he'd just been dropped by Conte. So there was a bit of an emotional outpour in the South Stand of, come on, like, you need a goal more than anyone's Son and everything will be okay. And he popped up with 3 in 18 minutes. So for me, it was it was that comeback against Leicester. That was a lovely moment.
And we haven't even mentioned the Puskás goal, have we?
Yeah.
Of which I think Vertonghen technically gets an assist.
He did.
He'll never let you forget it.
Exactly, he tweets about it. But the one fan base, and I thought it was quite classy, I've seen quite a few comments from them. One fan base that is happy to see him go because he terrorized them is City. He always was up for the City game.
Where does he rank then, guys, in terms of, the last question on him, where does he rank in terms of, it's a personal thing. I haven't seen Glenn Hoddle, so I can only go off some very old YouTube clips and Si calling him Glenda. But like, I guess in your personal level, where does he rank for you in your Tottenham all-time kind of favourite player? Let's not say best, because that's subjective. Let's say in terms of your favourite Spurs players, for you, Si?
He's just behind Glenda for me. I felt it was emotional when Glenda left for Monaco, and when the news broke about Sonny, and when all the announcements came out, it was a proper lump in the throat. Times he's right up there, right up there.
So I was at the end of Glenda's career, so I didn't really see him in his pomp. Asa, I thought, was amazing. I'll never forget that Cup 91 that he dragged us to the final. Bale was spectacular. There are players that I've loved because there was the shithousery amongst them, like Lamela. Players I've loved, like Dawes, because he loved the club. But for me, Son is the perfect combo because he was a brilliant player and he loved the club and he gave us 10 years.
Deej?
I think it's very easily that he is my favorite player that's ever played
Over
for the club.
Palacios?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Well said.
It's a toss up between him and
Gary
Brian
Doherty.
Peel at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think he just obviously I wasn't around to see like a lot of like the great players of the day, and then obviously Kane was a great player. But I think you would be lying to yourself if you think that the manner in which he handled himself in the final few off seasons didn't turn you away from thinking of him as like a legend in the way that we think about Son, because Son very clearly had eyes only for Tottenham and signed a contract when, honestly, as a fan of his as well as of Tottenham, I was like, why are you doing that? That's a terrible idea. Because we were just miserable at the time, and it gave us a level of consistency going into the future that we wouldn't have had otherwise. Yeah, it also he was a very, very good player, and yeah, easily number one for me. It'll be a difficult one to beat. It'll be one that I'll be telling my kids about, pretending he was the best person to ever touch a football.
He's your Glenda.
Yeah.
Every generation has that player, right? So for my generation, it was Glenn Hoddle, and the fact that Sonny's there at number 2 with all the players that have gone in between just goes to show the mark of the guy and the loyalty that he had to the club is second to one as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, quite agree. He, I think if you look at the favourite, you've had the breath in terms of the one. Yeah, he's got to be my favourite ever. I think Bale and Kane were the best ever that I've witnessed because I didn't see Hoddle and that era. Steve Malbronk might sneak in there to listening, Steve. But yeah, he's got to be there. Ledley King and Dawson. It's funny enough. Bale and Kane were two of the best I've ever seen. But Dawson, King, and Son are my favourites. I think they just kind of all amplified what I think being a Spurs flair is all about and being a part of the fans. And even Paul Robinson a little bit I had a bit of a soft spot for when he was, serenading the Spurs fans to "We Hate Arsenal" and all those kind of things. But we need to look to the future a bit. We were going to touch on the preseason games next, but I might come to that at the end if we've got time, because I want to flip some big news, injuries, and what that means for our transfers. We've brought in Paulinha, and we're going to get to that shortly. But Maddison's looks like an ACL injury. You'd think best case scenario right now, it's 6 months out. Likely 9 months we're talking here. Kulusevski's going to be out until November, if you read things correctly. Solanke's out injured. So starting with Maddison, do we now need another? Deej is nodding. We desperately need number 10. Deej. It's not even a debate, right? Is it?
No,
we have to get
we
one.
need it. We need it now. We need it as soon as possible. A little bit. I know that there was rumors about us going in for Enzo Mio. Apparently he's off to Saudi Arabia, so that's another potential target. I don't know how real that was. I don't think it was ever reported by anyone super trustworthy, but he was a person, a 10 who was up for sale, who is now no longer that. So the number of players we can get is shrinking. I think that if you go back and you look at when we struggled last season, you can one of the big through lines was not having that creativity in the middle of the field and just being able to create nothing as a result of it. And I think you could see that even a little bit in our preseason games, where I think that right now we're quite sound defensively. That we haven't really looked, especially in the games against where we've put mostly senior players out against other mostly senior players. I think we've been pretty good at having a defensive structure, but I still think we're lacking a little bit in that creativity element because we haven't had Maddison. And Maddison played for like 10 minutes, and now he's not going to play for a while, it looks like. But I do think that player is desperately needed. I would say that is now our biggest concern by a decent margin now that we've brought in Paulinha.
Most important priority. Does anyone disagree with that, firstly? No, I think we don't need to repeat ourselves across the room. But the question is, how do we address this? Because there's not many players in the market. The priority one in Morgan Gibbs White is gone. Does Eze? Is he suddenly looking a little bit more sparkly?
I think the problem with Eze is that his release clause has now expired, and Palace have made it pretty clear they were not willing to negotiate even the release clause. So now they've got power to ask for more. And I think all the voices, all the noises coming out of the club, even from their manager, is that the squad's too small as it is. So I can't imagine them wanting to let him go for anything but a ridiculous amount of money, no matter how much we like him. And I think he would be perfect for us. I think this is basically giving us a kick in the butt, because I think most of us would agree that we needed a 10 even when Madison was fit, and now we need 2. And so this is kind of teaching us that if we'd got one over the line by now, we wouldn't be in such dire straits. And now we're in trouble because there's not that many left on the board, and who is left is going to cost a fortune.
Well, what do you think? Surely we can't be thinking there's no one as good as James Maddison in the whole of Europe.
That's whether
when you look outside the Premier League into leagues we don't watch on a daily basis, there's got to be someone out there, right?
Whether you can get them or not, you start doing the look around and the usual suspects keep popping up on the searches. I don't know, Deej will probably have more insights about people like Nico Paz, maybe who had a really good season for Como last season, and I think there's a buyback clause from Real Madrid that they haven't triggered, or they've said they're not going to trigger, so it could be available. Then where else do you go? Do you look at someone like Damsgaard? But then you're starting to really dip into areas where you wouldn't dip into unless you were really desperate. So I think it's a different one, because I'm not sure that number 10 is there on the market for us to go for, Jim, if I'm honest.
I think it's going to have to be a signing a bit like, no one knew who Tapsoba was. We missed out of him to a guy called Van der Ven, and no one really knew who he was when you look at the general consensus of the fan base. And both are brilliant players who upgrade our first team. So you've got to hope that the scouting network we have can identify someone of those kind of, ability levels that we just haven't, seen montages of yet. And no one's clipped up using these sofa scouting tools. So let's see.
The thing that worries me, though, is if we had someone like that, you'd have thought we'd have got him in already.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's complex, though. We
thought we had Gibbs White until last week.
Yeah. So you imagine they've restarted the search, being pretty adamant that one was ticked off. But let's see. The only, I guess, benefit to an injury like that is when they happen, can be a more manageable time for it to happen for a team. And when it happens during the summer transfer window, that's better than during the January transfer window, or when a ball's been kicked and the window's closed, right? Because at least you have an option to react to that. So let's see what happens. Just classic Spurs, these injuries compound. No Decky, even though he's not really a 10. He's a player who can fill a void in that role. He's not available as well. So, it's
I think
kind of typical.
If there's one thing the friendlies have shown, is we really do need someone, because we have no creativity at all.
Yeah. Well, someone who won't add creativity, but will help fill the holes in our midfield is, and the reason why I used a bit of a Palacios joke earlier, we've always had these players, Palacios, Wanyama and Parker. People are often underwhelmed when they come in, but you see the whole balance of your side improve because they allow other players to have a platform to play their own game better. Deej, I'm going to start with you. You're not the most excited by him, but Paulinha, thoughts?
I think that Paulinha is a Portuguese football player who plays primarily in a defensive position in the midfield. No, I think Paulinha, if you're looking for someone to make life difficult for the opponent, you can't find much better than him. I know that the stat about him having like 100 more tackles than the next highest person over the span of time that he was in the Premier League has been floating around, and I think that's a pretty good like encapsulation of his game. That is it. If you look at like highlight tapes of Paulinha, you will see two things. You will see him tackling players, and you will see him pinging a ball long and like a diagonal ball to someone to run onto. Those are the two things he is good at. Unfortunately for me, that is kind of closer to the end of the list. I think that of the things that he's elite at, like the things that you can like really rely on him. I think that he will be frustrating at times to watch because of his limited passing range. In that if you go and you look at his Bayern stats, he has like a 97% pass completion percentage. But I can tell you that 3 of those went forward. So he's not going to be someone who will be. He's going to be more like a Dragishin in possession than someone even like a Bissouma, because he doesn't really do ball progression carrying either. He's there to defend, and he will defend very well, but we need to have a system set up to be able to work around his lack of attacking threat, I think. Frank may have that in mind, and obviously like that could be the reason why we brought him in. But yeah, I think he'll be very, very good against teams that are in like the other top 6 teams, other Champions League teams, where we are playing against people who are of a similar caliber, I would say, to like us, even maybe a step above. But I worry how he'll fit against a low block and whether or not we have player to, I guess, back him up in that position where we need someone a bit more creative. Is that just going to be Archie Gray against teams that we're expecting to sit off and be more of a low block against, or are we just going to play 2 more attacking options in the midfield and leave him to do basically all of the defensive work? That'll be interesting to see when we play against other teams who are more willing to sit back and let us have the ball. Because so far in the preseason, we haven't really played teams like that when we've been playing full senior squads.
Well, at least I think I don't see it as a bad thing when a new player comes in who brings something you don't already have. That brings options to a squad for a coach like Frank to do different stuff. And like I said, I've got a feeling Pedro Porro and Paulinha could become very good friends. We might see Porro.
Yeah, they knew each other at Sporting.
Already
they knew
very
each
good
other
friends.
at Sporting, didn't they?
They played together for Lisbon.
Yeah.
I think that's an example of a pairing that complement each other, though. You've got Porro, who's a very creative right wing back who doesn't have those defensive capabilities you'd, often stereotype with a player who starts off in defence, in inverted commas, even though we know that's not the reality of his role. Paulinho likes to cover those wide positions in deep, so it might be a good duo there. But there's another player we might be moving out, even though we've moved Paulinho in Bissouma. Do you see him leaving? And apparently West Ham want him.
I do see him leaving. I'm not sure. I mean, with Archie Gray's form in the pre-season, I thought Archie Gray looked a really good player in some of the pre-seasons, and maybe we might not have time for that today, but I think he did himself a lot of favours, and I think Biss's time is just about up. I mean, we were talking about this last year. I don't think that the injuries to Decky and Madders make any difference to Bissouma's lifespan at Tottenham. I think, in that sort of 6-8 roles, you've now got Paulinha, Bentancur, Sarr, Gray. I don't think Biss is at the top of that list as a starter. And if we can get a few quid for him, then great. I mean, we got 20 mil for Son in the end, didn't we? With everything added on, if we could get another, what would you get for Biss? 15?
Maybe no, maybe. I think less. I think 5.
Got
10.
another year on his got another year on his contract, has he? You get
1 year left.
You get 15 mil from a bottom half Premier League side for him, I think. If you
10
can get that sort of money,
I
reckon if you get that sort of money, then you take it, right? I don't think Paulinha, it adds more to that sort of holding role than Biss does. Paulinho will certainly bring some colour to the team, mainly yellow. I think he topped the yellow card charts when he was at Fulham, didn't he?
Yeah.
Although he only had 1 3-match ban, which
maybe he's one who likes to clatter in, get the yellow card, and then he plays quite sensible after that.
Maybe he's got a bit of Romero about him. I don't know. But yeah, so no, I wouldn't be surprised to see Biss move on.
Well, it's not just Biss we're looking to move out. A long list, Stu, of players, and one has just found his loan, I believe. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, so Tyrese Hall has just been announced as joining Notts County for this season, which Abbott had a great loan there last season, so hopefully has the same impact on Tyrese Hall. Obviously, Mikey Moore's gone to Rangers, although after what happened at the weekend, that'll be an interesting environment for him to be walking into after their manager tore them all a new one after drawing on the opening day against Motherwell. So that'll be an interesting eye-opener for him to men's football. And then we have another 7 on the list. So we've got Dane Scarlett and Alfie Devine, which I don't think surprises anybody. Yang is on the list as well. Abbott, Lancashire, Donnelly, and perhaps the biggest surprise, Vuskovic, is also on the list. So there's quite a long list of players of all our top youngsters who we're putting out. The one that I was surprised isn't on the list is Gunter, which makes me then also wonder if, with an eye to the Champions League, numbers, that's something that one of our foreign goalkeepers might make the list, which would be interesting choice. But it could be just a backup for that. But yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think we've all discussed on the pod before that we all want kids to be out there playing week in, week out, rather than sit on the bench and kind of go stale. We've seen what that's done to KWP. We saw what happened to Skip with not playing regularly. So I think while it might impact the players being club trained, as long as they stay in the country, maybe go to a championship side, it's good for them. They'll be homegrown and they'll be getting exposure to men's football, which can only help us going forward.
I think I want to get the. I'm going to put it on the podcast, the soundbite of I told them and they laughed. The Ange thing. Luka Vuskovic. We've been saying he's going to go on loan, guys. No one believed us. No one believed us. But, when we'd spoken to Ilias, who actually covered him as a journalist, he's saying the goals are great and he's got a massive ceiling and he's a massive guy. But he's got defensive fragilities and he's not particularly quick. He's got a lot of that development to do in defence. But people are going 9 goals and you're going, yeah, but defender.
I don't know, whack him up top. We kind of need a...
Yeah, maybe.
That's true. We need a striker.
We play 10.
Yeah, fantastic player who has all the looks of someone who would be a major player for Spurs in the starting 11 in future. But when they're 18 years old, let's focus on the development, not trying to tick the club train box or by keeping them in the reserves for Spurs.
Well, he can be club trained as long as we keep him inside of Europe. As long as we keep him inside the Prem for 2 years. So he can go out and loan this year and then stay, right?
No, he can't. We've covered this before.
Vuskovic? He's 18.
Yeah.
Any player that goes out has to be here at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season to count.
Yeah, but he only needs to be here for 2 years. So I'm saying we can loan him once.
He needs 3 years to become. No, to be an under 21, it's 2 years. You still have to be 3 years after that.
Okay, I'm not sure I agree with the decision to send him on loan then, but I don't know. I'm not a club player. We have so many issues in club train status that it just seems like it always happens. And I don't know. I think that when you have a player that you expect to keep, if we expect to keep him around, I think it's kind of more worth it to have him. But
I think Lancashire will get there and Donnelly will get there in terms of club trained. So we've got a couple coming through. And Archie Gray will be next season. So we're going to have 3. Was it year after next? But we'll have those 3 soonish. Yeah. So let's see.
I'm surprised. I thought we might have kept him until January, but clearly Frank's seen that he's not going to get enough minutes, I think.
And does that mean Takai is ahead of him in the pecking order then?
Yeah, that matches up with initial reports that he was always a part of the plans. He can play either side.
Right.
And Takai's injured anyway, so he wouldn't be able to go on loan.
Oh, okay.
Rumours, guys, of a Grealish loan?
No.
Please, God, no.
No.
Okay. Take that as a resounding no. I thought the same, and I thought if it happened and it was just a loan, I wouldn't be excited, but I'd say, well, it's better depth than we had before, so whatever.
But that's not really where we should be pushing on after winning the Europa League, is it? Oh, listen.
No, that's true. No, it's true. Guys, we've got 2 more topics just to kind of touch on in particular. One is Dele.
Yeah.
There was rumours of he's looking at retirement, but he debunked that, so that's not the case. He's looking for a club. So we just want to quickly touch on that, and also the Thomas Frank interview with Bein Sports. Well, there were some interesting little bits in there. I like that Franks explains his way through the journey and where he's taken us. But Dele, guys, I don't think we need to reminisce over the story, or I don't like the term what went wrong, because we don't know how much of this is his choice. It might not be anything going wrong. He might be just saying, I'm just not in a space where I want to be pushing myself 24/7 to be the best footballer in the world. He might be quite content with who he is. We don't know. We'd all be speculating. So, but our favourite moment with Dele, maybe a nice way to kind of highlight on him, because there have been many. Di, do you have one?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's loads of lovely goals, but the goal that I loved the most was the one where he ran through and just flicked it over with his right foot against Arsenal.
Outside of his boot.
Sublime. I mean, it was almost like he was playing in the playground. It was just like, yeah, okay, mate, pink, there you go. And that was the mark of the player at that time, wasn't it? I mean, he had, the world was his oyster for sure. And, with all the demons he had and whatever that was around him and his childhood, etc., was all on that interview. It's just, you look at him and you think, what could have been? He was, I think, the first 100 games, I think Lampard pipped him to goal involvements in their first 100 games in the Premier League. No other player got close to him and Lampard.
Stu, so you agree with Si? Is that your favourite moment?
No, I love that goal. As Si's gone, I'll go for the other one. I think it was against Chelsea. Long ball by Dyer. Took it with one foot, blasted it with the other. Absolute sublime.
Beautiful.
You two have taken my top.
There's the Palace one.
Yeah, but
I think that Palace one is a bit overrated.
Deej.
Me too.
I'll keep the Palace one. My favorite Dele moment, I think, was I don't know if you guys remember this, but
I was going to say, don't do the celebration and the handshake of Son. That's mine.
The celebration when Dele was I guess cooking with that, I think was the epitome of him as like a player. I think he was also someone who brought a lot of his own personality onto the pitch, and you could see that with some of the goals he scored. Obviously, the ones mentioned was the Crystal Palace one, and but I think that I don't know him. I always love it when one of our players like kind of becomes like I don't know a trend, and I think he did that in that point, and that was pretty cool.
Well, there you go, and I'll go for the handshake with Sonny then. I quite like that, just because it's a nice.
Yeah.
They both came up today, and they're both legends for the club. Well, Son is forever. I don't want to put. They're both adored by us, let's say. The next one, Thomas Frank's interview. Hands up, have you actually watched that before I throw you a question on it? Because yes. Si, is that a hand up or is that a scratch?
It's a sort of half a hand up. I got about halfway through it.
I watched it a week or two ago.
Well, he did another.
He did another one, didn't he?
Yeah.
It was like a week ago.
No,
he spoke about Paulinha and what he brings to
okay. No,
the
I've not
side
seen
as
that.
well. He basically said Paulinha, he just highlighted all his strengths and he acknowledged he's not there to be a passer. He's there to be a ball winner, and he gives a platform for other players to do what they're going to do, which was, I just find Frank's, I don't think you can beat Ange's motivational talks and mic drops, that stuff, but Frank does feel like he just kind of pauses to say, by the way, I'm going to explain that I do hear you and I understand. Because even then, I think if you're like saying, a fan saying, Paulinha, frustrating, can't do this and the other, and your manager comes out straight away and goes, I know. Just to let you know, I know that and I'm not going to use him in that way. It's kind of reassuring as to why you're making decisions, right? Just adds a little bit of difference. But guys, I guess we could do thoughts on Frank so far. Was it too early to assess? What's your thoughts so far? So you're not blown away, are you? You don't have to pretend.
No, do you know what? Listen, I think like in all of his time at Brentford, he talks a lot of sense. You can't really disagree with much that he says. He doesn't grip me. I'm a bit underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed with him at Brentford, and I'm yet to feel the spark just yet. I'll be there in the ground, 100% behind him. Of course I will. I'm just not feeling that. This is the first season, I've got to be honest, where I feel a little bit flat going into the season, guys. I go into seasons usually thinking we're going to win everything that we go in for. This season, I'm a little bit worried, if I'm honest. Especially now with the injuries. I'm concerned.
Well, a few big transfers would solve that, wouldn't it?
Certainly would. And they've got to be a bit bigger than Kudus and Paulinha for me.
Ooh, bigger than Kudus.
Kudus for me, underwhelming at West Ham. Listen, guys, I'm going to be proven wrong. I hope so. But again, it's not. And the Paulinha one, right, is one where you go, yeah, okay, I get it. But again, underwhelmed by it to a certain extent. It's not like if we went and got Adam Wharton, you're then going, wow, that is a statement signing. Now, I'm not saying that we could, should, or would have got Adam Wharton away, but that type of signing makes you go, wow. Paulinha makes you go, yeah, all right. Is it any better? Is he any better? Is he any better than what we've had in that position in the past that we let go?
I think we're ascribing a bit of Adam Wharton's future potential to his current gameplay, though.
But he
like,
does
he's
control
good,
games.
but I don't know if he's a wow signing right now.
I would be for sure.
I also think if we'd have signed Paulinha 12 months ago, people would be wetting themselves.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Is he any better than Højbjerg in that position?
Yes.
They're completely different. Højbjerg could pass.
Højbjerg could pass, but
Højbjerg couldn't
Paulinha can tackle and read the game better. Very different.
Just my thoughts, guys.
I think you'll have a moment where you fall in love with him. Go on, Stu.
I think it's hard for anybody to follow Ange's charisma. I mean,
sure.
And storytelling and press conferences. And Frank is your typical kind of calm Scandinavian. So I think the contrast is perhaps kind of jarring. I've enjoyed the preseason games in that we look a lot more solid. Porro, I don't know if you guys noticed, I'm sure DJ has, he's not leaving big gaps behind him anymore. He's defending well. We're not getting torn apart every single attack. And I think Paulinha is going to, make sure that that happens even less. The only thing I feel very sorry for Frank is he's not had Madison because he's been injured. He's not had Solomon because he got injured. He's not had Solanke because he's been injured. A couple of key players at the creative side and have been missing. And I think as it stands, no Sonny and what he brings with goal involvements, no reliable striker because Tell didn't look great. Richie's looked a little dodgy in front of goal. I think as it stands, we are going to have a rough start. We need to bring in a couple of people up front, I think.
Yeah.
I think we're taking a if the window's shut today type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
sure.
And there's so much that can change. And
just maybe, Deej, some of your thoughts here. What does Paulinha do for Bentancur? Because I think, does that free up some of his creativity and running ability?
Yeah, no, I think that having Paulinha there will allow some of our other midfielders to play more of their strengths. Because I think that a lot of the midfielders we have that were maligned last season were more box-to-box midfielders that got shoehorned into a more defensive role because we didn't really have any other choices. I think Bentancur, you can see with his defending that he's not the most positionally adept, but he wants to go get the ball, and sometimes that can lead to him leaving spaces behind him. So having someone where he's given more license to do that, I think will be good for him. And then obviously he's very silky on the ball, can play passes pretty well, can dribble quite well. He'll be able to use a bit more of those abilities this season if he's played alongside of Paulinha, where you have less of a worry about leaving that defensive space behind you.
Because I do need to interrupt it for some breaking news.
Exciting.
Well, I messaged Stu this earlier, but it's come out on The Athletic now as well. So FIFA is facing a class action lawsuit over its transfer rules that could include claims from every professional footballer who has played in the European or United Kingdom since 2002. Long story short, what this seems to mean is it would give players the right to cancel their own contracts.
Yeah.
And force their way out of clubs.
Gibbs White saw the writing on the wall.
Basically,
Imagine,
be treated like any other employee. You give 2 months' notice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that would
break
kill
a lot.
Grassroots football would be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't foresee that being good for the game, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm not.
So then they come with all the other employment rights that come with. So you can't dismiss effectively.
Yeah, it would change a lot.
You get redundancy payments, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, just think what it does for everyone. Would just be like, "Well, I'm going to Man City now. They've asked me to."
Yeah,
and just cancel their contract, and then they get a bonus when they turn up to cover the cost of cancelling their own contract. It would be that would truly, I think, finally be the game's gone moment. Actually, being truly the game's gone. I don't think you could. I would just give up following football at that point.
At that point, have a super league of the 5 clubs everyone wants to play for, and forget it.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think that's
yeah. Well,
hopefully that doesn't materialize.
Yeah, one to watch anyway. One to watch. Also, things we haven't covered today. There's stadium sponsor rumours that they're gathering pace. Let's see what that means over the coming days. But yeah, I don't think we should be so pessimistic, guys. If we get a few more signings in, I'm confident we will. We can be optimistic. Well, I'm not saying we're going to go win the league. But I think you need 2 or 3 more to stay in the top 6.
Oh, for sure.
And once you've stayed in the top 6, you can start to rebuild again, use that stadium revenue and those extra competitions. We're going to enjoy the home games more next year as well. I think, admittedly, we don't lose 22 games next season. We're going to enjoy being at the ground a bit more and those days together. And I think Frank doesn't have the charisma off the bat, but all he has to do to win over fans is win a few games. And I think soon he'll have you doing the choo-choo sound and all that kind of stuff. So I think he's a sensible appointment, and he'll do a good job. He'll do a good job. Right, boys, we better wrap up there. We're on the hour. Right. But up the Spurs, and I'll put it in the link, this video on YouTube. We're doing a little game. So if you're like some of us, where you just can't be bothered to keep up with fantasy football anymore, and choosing your captain every day and fixture difficulty and all that stuff, it's a Spurs-specific leaderboard. You put your pre-season predictions in, and we'll update it as the season goes, and the winner will get a replica Europa League trophy or its equivalent value of, I think it was 350 quid, I think it was. I'll have to double check the value. And also, we'll continue to disable mid-roll ads on our videos. So once you've watched the one at the start, you won't get any interruption at the middle, but that takes a 30 to 40% hit in revenue for us. So we wouldn't mind a like and subscribe in exchange if you fancy it, but whatever. No stress if not. Up the Spurs, guys.
Go on, Spurs.